Frank's Red Hot is the perfect blend of flavor and heat, so you can use an entire bottle to make recipes like buffalo chicken dip or buffalo nachos, or even things that don't start with buffalo. Frank's Red Hot, I put that on everything.
Ready?
And we ran so far away, but we didn't get anywhere because we went in a loop. We didn't get anywhere. So, Jeff, how are you feeling?
That was fantastic. I'm feeling pretty good. I went out for my first run tonight since Saturday. So, how are you feeling after Saturday?
Same. Well, first, welcome to Podcast versus Everyone. I'm Craig Powers. With me is Jeff Newser.
Hello.
We participated in the Sound to Narrows event in Tacoma, a running event where people run for no
run
goddamn
long distances.
They pay money to run. Like that's it, and you get a little medal.
Yeah,
a participation medal.
Of all the stupid shit that we do that prehistoric people would be like, what the fuck? Like, this has to be up there, right? Like, and not,
wait.
I mean,
yeah,
you run for, I mean, they probably wouldn't even have had a word for entertainment, right? Like they would have had, whatever. I mean, I don't know. It would have been something, but it's like, the idea that you run for fun, for joy, like you pay to run, and then we're like, no, let's really blow their minds. Let's show them the rock and roll marathon in Seattle.
Yeah, right.
You want to see people, those people paid like $100 to go run in the street for 25 miles.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I did my first run now. The caveat on that, on Sunday, we went on like a leisurely family bike ride because B was attached to the back of Amanda's bike, so we couldn't go too fast. So that wasn't too taxing, but I went on we're doing I think I've mentioned before, we're doing the Seattle to Portland ride next month. So I got to get my ass in gear on training on that bike.
Yeah, you do.
So I went for a little 15-mile ride, basically retracing the Sound to Narrows path somewhat, going through Point Defiance Park, and man, that's a hilly ride, a hilly run and a hilly ride. So I did a little 15-mile ride. So I taxed myself a little bit yesterday, and then today, right about 20 minutes after I ate dinner, I was like, I want to get a run in before we do the podcast, before I drink a bunch of beer.
Yeah.
And so I just went out, and man, I just I couldn't get it going. Like I just couldn't get up to speed. It was a struggle. I ran for 20 minutes, and it was just a struggle the entire time. Complete opposite of Saturday, where I just felt really good. And obviously running with thousands of people.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
Propels you, and there you always can find someone to run next to or whatever, and follow or whatever. And we had big groups of Army guys running through and chanting, and then all that. And there was actually a band playing music like halfway through the course, like out just parked in one of the turnouts on 5 Mile Drive and Point Defiance Park, and that was pretty funny. So didn't have any of that tonight on my 2-mile run, just through the neighborhood. So it was a little rougher. But yeah, I got to get my legs back, my running legs. But now I got to transition to cycling legs. But it was overall, man, it was fun. It was a nice sense of accomplishment. I think we both ran faster than our goals. So
yeah, I think it's hard to describe to people kind of how hard that course is, and when I say hard, like I ran the 5K, you ran the 12K, so that's, I mean, I probably would have died had I tried to do the 12K. But anybody who's familiar with Tacoma and Point Defiance in that area, I mean, basically the race is, look, you don't even have to be familiar with Point Defiance necessarily, just like if you've ever been to the water, you know that when you go to the water, you have to go down hills to get to sea level, right? So it's like the race starts up above and you run toward the water and then you run back. And so it's like, for me, it's like I ran, kind of down to basically where the entrance to Point Defiance was, right?
Right.
And then came back. So, a little over 3 miles. Well, like you ran, I don't know what yours works out to, like about 7 miles, right?
It's about 7.5.
Yeah. So you had to run all the way down to the water and then all the way back up, which is fairly incredible to me, actually, because, I thought I might vomit when I was going over the finish line, mostly just because I was really plugging along on the uphill, really trying to give it my best effort and use all my last little bit of energy. And then when I, come, there's a little downhill as you go towards the finish. I was like, yeah, I made it this far. And then like, I think there was like some kind of release. And then all of a sudden I was like, but I didn't, I held it together and, sat by the finish line waiting for you to come across. And then of course, like a moron, I was playing around on my phone when you came running by. And so I did get a good shot of your backside.
I know, it was excellent.
So you're welcome for that. You're welcome.
Yeah, that was that's a pretty, like, it's a pretty hilly course, and I wasn't really training. You basically were like, I'm gonna do this on Saturday, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna do the 12K.
Yeah. I was like, really? You are? Wow.
So yeah, it's just basically rolling. Like you go down, you go up, you go down, you go up, you go down. And the thing about, like, when you're cycling, when you go downhill, that's like a rest. If you want it to be, you can have it be a rest. There's no rest when you're running. Like, it's funny when I look at my like heart rate during a run, it's just steadily grows up. If you could look at it during a bike ride, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down. But so I had read about this basically in the 12K, and then the same as the 5K. The first mile and a half or so is just straight downhill, or like maybe the first half mile is flat, and then you just go downhill for the next mile. And so I had read about this 12K race because I've been running it for 40 plus years, and they said don't like book it down the hill because you have another 6 miles to go after you hit the bottom of that hill. And as soon as you enter Point Defiance Park, it's a steady climb for almost a mile. And it's just, it's a nightmare. Like, you're just like, and I'm glad I researched the race because I would have just booked it down that hill. But I was just like holding back, and I had a lot of energy in the middle of the race to do with those hills. It was finally at the end of the race when you're coming back up the hill, you're basically climbing for a mile and a half until the last half a mile. I was I was keeping my pace going up the hills. I was pushing really hard, and I got to the top of the hill last half mile. My legs were just like jelly, and I was like trying to push so hard. There was this girl that I was pacing with like through several miles of the race, and we were chatting a little bit, and I had pulled away from her on the hills because I was able to climb the hills pretty well. But then when we got to that flat part at the end, she came running by me. She's like, oh, you pulled away from me. And I'm like, oh, I'm paying for it now. Like, I can't do anything now. But I did have a little bit left for that last dash to the line, but it was quite an experience. It was fun. I think I'm gonna do it every year now, and try to beat my times in the future and all that.
Yeah. I just kept trying to pick out people who I thought were either older or fatter than me. And I'm I gotta reel that person in and pass them. I gotta reel that guy in and pass him, and then, so that made me feel a little better. Yeah. Right. But it's cool. Like, I don't know. The races are fun. You get the,
I got a lot of Go Cougs.
Yeah. And there's lots of people around.
I was wearing a Coug shirt and you weren't.
Yeah. I probably got some Go Cougs. I just wasn't listening because I had music in my ear. I can't do it otherwise. So I got to have something going. But so it was lots of Pearl Jam, some Rage Against the Machine, a little Soundgarden. So we were plugging away, and
I just had the sounds of the race, man. That's all I needed.
I always end up focusing on the sound of my feet going thud, 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 thud. And
that's like, rhythmic. It's nice.
Yeah. But then it's like, all I think is, oh, my feet kind of hurt. My legs feel kind of heavy now. So yeah, I don't want to think about that. I want to think about, Mike McCready's, killer guitar solo or whatever.
Well, so what are you drinking to celebrate your 5,000 5,000-meter
My 5,000-meter run.
Yeah.
So tonight after again going for a run for the first time, kind of feeling I wanted to drink something a little light. So I had a Fremont Summer Ale that I picked up sitting in the fridge. So I grabbed that. I'm working on that. And it's pretty
I know you were talking about Bodie from Costco.
Yeah.
Did you get the 24 pack from Costco?
I didn't. They
Fremont Summer Ale.
So no. So this was just a bomber. They had a 22 there. So,
okay. Because
so
actually,
I could not drink 24 cans. I would not want to drink 24 cans of anything.
Yeah, we don't have a Costco membership. We used to for many years, but we just never went enough for it to matter. And my girlfriend's dad, Amanda's dad and mom were in town. So we went to Costco on Saturday, and they had 24 packs of Summer Ale, and basically they're just like, they both love that beer. I like Summer Ale; it's good beer. But they just always looking for stuff they can drink that they don't have to ask me to drink. So it's a pretty good deal, man. It's like less, like it's way cheaper than buying it in the regular store. So I'm like, have at it. And they crushed it, man. We only got like a 6-pack left. So so they were having fun with the summer. I haven't even had one yet. So Fremont Summer Ale.
Nice light summer beverage. So
I think it's essentially just a hoppy pale ale.
It would if those of you listening to the podcast who maybe have, because if you listen to the podcast, if you listen to our beer stuff every week, you're probably not like your run of the mill Busch Light drinker. But if you have, say, family members who, do that, like my dad, if you're trying to get them to drink maybe something like not Coors Light or something like that. I feel like this would be a pretty good sort of gateway craft beer to kind of get them into it. It's light. It's a little bit citrusy. It's kind of bready, like those light beers. It's good.
I think maybe might be a little hoppy. I think you've been having a lot of IPAs. Maybe your palate's a little tuned to them. Like I've drank so many sour beers now that like I'll have a beer that's like I don't think is very tart, and I'll try someone I know that's like not that into a tart beer, and I'll let them try it, and they'll be like, oh my god, that's so tart. I'm like, oh man, I guess my my palate is just you're
like my taste buds have been crushed.
So that's
like you've been sucking on Sour Patch Kids every day or something.
Yeah, I do like Sour Patch Kids. Theater, delicious.
Yeah.
Well, you buy them
they are delicious.
Buy them at Walgreens and then take them into the movie theater.
How dare you? How dare you, Craig?
So
rule breaker.
How many
arrest you for that?
How many so out of 5 discount movie snacks from the drugstore versus instead of $7 movie snacks, out of how many 5 discount movie snacks would you rate that?
This is like 3.75 chocolate covered peanuts.
Goobers.
I do love Goobers.
I mean, I like most like movie snacks that are just something covered in chocolate.
Yeah.
I'm not big. Gummy bears, chocolate covered raisins, Raisinets.
Yeah.
Love those.
I almost said Raisinets. I was close to saying Raisinets, but
Raisinets are definitely
more of a Goober guy.
Movie candy for me. One of it I do love with popcorn is Milk Duds. I feel like they counteract each other in terms of getting stuck in your teeth. Like they just like they're both food that get stuck in your teeth, but then they stick together.
Yeah. Okay. Let me blow your mind. Let me blow your mind right now.
Yes.
Sarah takes the Milk Duds and pours them into the popcorn.
Yeah, I've seen people do it with M&Ms.
And then eat some like that.
Yeah.
They get a little soft and squishy, and
I pop a Milk Dud in my mouth, and then I guess go through a few handfuls of popcorn until that Milk Dud is taxed.
Okay.
That's my style, but I do like that. But I just don't want the melted chocolate all over my hands.
I don't either. It sounds disgusting to me, but other people like it, so whatever. What about you?
So next week I will be traveling to the great state of Indiana.
Mm.
So I actually have a wedding in Chicago, a friend in Chicago getting married the weekend after next, so like the 22nd or whatever. And it turns out Amanda has a conference for work in Indianapolis next week, the week before. So it kind of worked out. I'll just fly out with her. I was going to fly out to the Midwest anyway so it's not an extra flight for me. We're gonna I'll fly out to Indianapolis with her. We'll stay in Indianapolis during the week. I'll watch B in the hotel room. The great part of working from home is that I can just do my job anywhere. So I just work, in Indy. I've tried to keep my call schedule as clean as possible. Nothing extra. Get some work done in the hotel but yeah, so I've been to Indiana a few times. When we lived in Nashville, we had some friends that were from IU, so we went to Bloomington and stuff, but I've never been to Indianapolis, so that will be a new town for me. I've been doing some beer research and such. But anyways, so because I'm going to Indiana, I went down to the cellar, found a beer from Indiana, from a brewery called Taxman Brewing. They make a barrel aged series that I think they can everything. This particular one, they have a Belgian, or this is not a barrel aged beer actually. I was confused, but it's a Belgian style quadruple ale. Quadruple ale is just a big malty beer, usually coming in about 10 to 12%. It's usually kind of ruby amber in color, and it's Belgian yeast, which gives it kind of estery, fruity flavors, with Belgian candy sugar, which gives that like sweetness to it. So it's a very classic style, brewed by monks or whatever. The most famous, one of the ones that you've made, a quadruple you've probably seen is St. Bernardus 12. That one you can find a lot of places, or Rochefort 10. That's a Roquefort 10. Those are pretty available in the U.S. Probably the most famous one is the West Vleteren. I'm not pronouncing that right. We usually call it Westy 12. I've had at one point was the highest rated beer in the world for quite a long time before, the craft beer scene exploded. So the quadruple is it's a good style, especially if you like malty, thick beers. It's like a Belgian cousin to a barley wine. It's like the Belgians version of an English barley wine. But so typically when, the brewers will make when you barrel age these, they taste like, they'll have some of the same malty characteristics, but this particular one is not barrel aged. It is, it's a Belgian style quadruple, which they threw a curveball here and added coffee and vanilla. One's a little lighter than some. It's 9.5%. It's called Qualified, which is, they always have tax related names. I'm not sure exactly what qualified would imply. But yeah, so they have Taxman. Their logo is like this skull, smiling skull with a top hat and a bow tie. So yeah, that's Indiana. It's from Bargersville, Indiana. I think it's a little bit south of Indianapolis. I've read it's worth a trip if you're going to Indianapolis. We won't have a car. We're actually taking the Amtrak from Indianapolis to Chicago when we go there. Yeah. Which is actually, I found out, the state of Indiana decided to no longer fund that route anymore.
Interesting.
So it's the last month of it running.
Oh.
So we're barely catching it. It was pretty inexpensive. It was like $70 for the 2 tickets.
Yeah, that's super.
For
that's
like
super
a 5-hour train trip or whatever. So it was a
That's
hell of a
nice.
lot cheaper than renting a car one way or whatever.
Right.
Because we're flying out of Chicago. We're not coming back to Indianapolis. So.
Right.
Yeah, in Chicago, you don't really need a car. They have good, well, as long as you're staying in the right areas, you don't need a car. But yeah, so I'm excited for that. I'll still find time to podcast when I'm over there in Indy land. But I just wanted to have an Indiana beer. It's a pretty interesting one. I have a few others from them, some bourbon barrel aged stouts and such, and they're pretty solid stuff. I assume they're a pretty good brewery overall, from the few things I've tried.
Nice.
So in terms of ratings, well, this year, thanks to the kind of what many people, including myself, found out is that when you were getting fewer taxes taken out of your paycheck, turns out they just changed what they mostly did was change the schedule for your company to withdraw the money. So this year I got a big surprise and had a nice $1,000 tax bill at the end of the year. That was fun. I always like to dip into your bonus with the tax.
Thanks, Trump.
My taxes, yeah. I think my tax bill overall was roughly the same. It's just it was taken out, not as much out of my paycheck, to the point where they're like, you may have to pay a penalty because you didn't pay enough during the year. And I'm like, that's bullshit. Like, what am I supposed
that actually happened to a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm like, what the fuck?
Because the IRS actually adjusted the withholding calculations, so that's what I meant about how that happened to a lot of people.
Yeah. So
anyway, continue.
That happened to me. So Amanda and I are not married, so we pick who gets to claim B based on who has the biggest tax impact. And Amanda, who makes more money than me, it typically impacts her more. So she gets a bigger, difference in her tax return based on, and then she splits the difference with me on paying my bill. So I didn't really pay the bill. Amanda got a huge return, and we just paid it out of that. So
yeah, there you go.
It wasn't that big of a deal, but yeah. So on the flip side, Amanda had a surprise, very large tax return. So out of 5 surprisingly large tax returns, I'll give this 4.
Attaboy. 4 surprisingly large tax returns.
Yeah, which are, it's always if you actually understand how this works, that it's either that or you pay, you're getting less taken out of your check throughout the year. It's all the same. You pay the same amount of taxes any way you do it. You pay the same. It doesn't matter. Which I don't think a lot. I think we've gotten into this tax return kind of culture where people think that there are
it's a
things.
Bonus.
Well, yeah, there are things like the tax credits that are just oh, you have a kid and you get this or whatever, or you make this low of income and you get a bonus or that or whatever. Right. But really, the whole year you were going to pay the same amount of taxes. And so it's not you just you paid too much and that's why you get a return.
Right.
It's not free money or something.
Yeah. I think in general, people are just generally bad at 2 things. I think they're generally bad at budgeting, and then as an extension of that, they're generally bad at saving. And sometimes it's people just they have the money, they're going to spend the money, and so basically the way they treat the tax return is as sort of a savings account, like a forced savings account, where it's
which is not so bad.
The government's going to hold my money where I can't touch it for an entire year, and then they're going to pay me. It's almost like a trust fund or something, Well, here's your trust fund paycheck, now I can go pay off the credit card or whatever. And it's well, if you were getting that money back all year because you had the proper amount of withholding, maybe you wouldn't have needed the credit card. I don't know, but it's hard though. Like I've stared at those, is it the W-4, right? Where you fill out your withholding.
Yeah.
Try to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I stare at it and I'm like, like, I think I'm a pretty smart guy, and I'm staring at it going like, I'm not even sure exactly what I'm supposed to be doing here.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sure that happens to a lot of people, and they end up, you know, withholding more than they need to, or, you know, they started out at a certain withholding level and then they had 3 kids and never changed it, you know, because they never changed jobs. So anyway.
Yeah, I think that's Amanda's at the withholding level of pre-child.
Yeah.
And so she's that's why she gets such a big return at the end of the year. So it's
yeah. Welcome to Podcast versus Everyone Tax Advice.
Tax advice.
We are not licensed tax professionals. I feel like we should just throw that disclaimer in there so that we don't get ourselves in trouble.
Yeah. If you don't know, ask someone
someone's going to be like, God damn you guys. I tried to adjust my withholding and now I owe $3,000 to the IRS. I blame it on you. I don't know.
Take our advice.
Not tax experts.
Take our advice and you will end up in jail. Yeah. Guaranteed.
Take our advice and go see a tax expert.
Yeah, that's what I said.
That's our advice. Yeah.
All right. So should we, I don't know, we've talked about running, we've talked about beer, and we've talked about taxes. For the
3 people who are still listening, what else should we talk about?
Okay. So, well, we do have a WSU related topic.
Yeah.
And so
sort of,
thanks to Mr. Jon Wilner of what is the San Jose
Mercury News. Yeah.
I didn't know if I mean, his stuff gets distributed to some other papers as is standard these days, but yeah, so he does the Pac-12 hotline or whatever he calls it down there. Yeah. Probably the most aside from Mr. Canzano. Yeah. Who's just come back with a flurry of Pac-12 reporting.
Yeah.
But I think Wilner's been the most steady and consistent Pac-12 reporter over.
Well, there just aren't that many.
Yeah, they're really. I mean, he might be the only one. Actually.
There used to be one in like every Pac-12 market. You know, it used to be, you know, Bud Withers, and Canzano was that guy and is again, and Wilner. But anyway, it used to be a guy everywhere, and now like I think Wilner's one. Wilner and Canzano, and I'm not even sure. You know, Canzano's not even, I don't think, kind of on the same level, just because I think he's more doing, you know, sort of reporting on the conference itself, where Wilner kind of tries to cover the whole conference. So anyway, continue with Mr. Wilner's, I don't know, brilliant suggestion or not. I guess that's what we're going to talk about.
It's a suggestion, but so obviously the Pac-12 has what is viewed as a exposure problem.
Yeah.
With 10 p.m., 10:30, 11 p.m. Eastern start times, in just even their marquee games are up against the marquee games of everyone else. So that's how you end up with the late start times, just to kind of get your own slot. But where only the craziest and insane like college football fans on the East Coast are still watching. Right. I have experienced the East Coast start times many times, having lived in Tennessee and then Vermont for a total of about 5.5 years. So I know the pain of that. I know there's several other writers we have on the blog who have experienced the same thing, but it's a pain in the ass. And you can see, like, you know, with a 7:30 start time, I was like, I'm not even sure I can go to or it'd be 10:30 out East. I'm not even sure I can go to a 2 a.m. closing bar and watch this game, because I might have to leave before it ends.
That's so sad.
Yeah, and especially once Leach hit, the Cougs, you know, the 60-59 game. I remember sitting in my Vermont living room when that got over, and I had to come down. You have to come down after a game like that.
Yeah,
it's already like past 2 a.m.
Yeah,
and you're just like, well, I'm not going to bed for 2 hours probably. So you're talking about like 4 a.m. Like if you're a diehard of one of these teams, and if you're just, you know, if you're the crazy ones that, you know, you're waiting for the Hawaii game, then whatever, you know, like Spencer Hall waiting for that Hawaii game. Anyway, so in order to gain more exposure, Jon Wilner had an idea of putting more Pac-12 games in the daytime for the East Coast. And of course, one of the great and wonderful benefits of living on the West Coast is that you get 9 a.m. college football on Saturdays and 9 a.m. college basketball or whatever. Yep. Like it's such a glorious and wonderful thing. When I lived out east, it was 12 p.m. It was such like a long wait.
You wait till noon.
Yeah, like you just wait till noon for you got because now if you sleep in, there's football already on. You're like, all right, like I'm waking up and there's football. Like if you get up early, you can watch game day. And then, that was the one good thing is you could watch game day without getting up at the ass crack of dawn. But other than that, it was I think it's way better to watch sports overall on the West Coast. But what Wilner suggested is that what it was, you correct me on the details. I believe it was each Pac-12 team must play a 9 a.m. home game once every 5 years. So
it was something like that
over a period of 5 years. So basically, he suggests bringing 9 a.m. home games to the Pac-12. So from a TV standpoint, it makes sense. Like it doesn't matter if you're watching at home and the Cougs are on at 9 a.m. Whatever, you're just getting up at 9 a.m. From an attendance standpoint, for WSU and several other places around, I mean, even the city locations, that's a tough ask to have fans go in at 9 a.m. So Jeff, what do you think about this? First, we'll get into what a 9 a.m. day would look like, but what are your thoughts kind of on the face of this?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start conceptually because I do think that the challenges are different for us, than they are for, Washington or pretty much anybody else, right? So we'll get into those specific challenges in a sec. But, I think here's the main problem I have with it. It's not so much that, it's 9 a.m., it's early, it's attendance, it's whatever. I mean, those things all matter. I'm not convinced that it actually moves the needle at all. Because it's not like you have that window all to yourself. You're not playing alone. There's other games in that window. Now, granted, they are, and to my mind, we were kind of talking about this on the Coug Center Slack, and maybe this is just anecdotal, but to my mind, it certainly seems like most of the games that are going on in that noon slot are sort of your second tier, Big Ten,
right?
ACC type games, maybe some SEC. Just sort of your second tier stuff, because most of the first tier stuff is happening, in that 3 or 4 p.m. time slot, 3:30, 4 p.m. time slot, on CBS and ESPN, ABC, whatever. So, okay, so you play your 9 o'clock game. I mean, you're not wanting to put, let's say, for example, Washington State, Oregon last year, right, which was sort of the marquee game in the Pac-12 that day. Well, you're not playing that game at 9 a.m., right? No. You don't want to take a game like that and, play it at 9 a.m. where, the fans are going to have a hard time getting there and the players may not be at peak performance level and all those things, right? So what you're playing is, it's a second tier game, right? I mean, that's basically what you would probably schedule there is, a couple of unranked teams or, a team that's ranked playing a team that's maybe not as good, that sort of thing. So yeah, does it help maybe that ranked team get seen? Sure. Maybe there's a handful more eyeballs on your game at that point.
Yeah. If the alternative is the 7:30 start. Yeah.
Right. So maybe there's a few more eyeballs than the 7:30 start.
But right? Also there's another caveat here, right? Is that game on the Pac-12 network?
Right. So it's probably not. I imagine the 9 a.m. needs to be FS1, ESPN, something right. like that, right? Some sort of, quasi mainstream, broadcast channel. And like I said, like theoretically, sure. I mean, it's better than for visibility. You're going to get better visibility than a 7 o'clock start. Okay, fine. but how much is that really going to make a difference? I don't, if you're really trying to attract a lot of eyeballs, it needs to be the best game in that time slot. And you don't want to do that with a 9 a.m. start or a 10 a.m. start if it's one of the mountain schools, right?
Yeah,
So
really.
So I just don't see
Oregon State and Cal
Sure.
playing each other. Like
right.
not to rip on them, but like last year, if it would have been them playing, like who the hell is what? Like it's again, it's the college football diehards that are watching it, and they're probably staying up till 10:30 to watch that game anyway because that's what they do on Saturday.
Are they going to watch Cal? Let's just say, Cal, Arizona State, maybe something that's not quite as bad.
Yeah, Cal, Arizona State over.
Are they going to watch Cal, Arizona State, or are they going to watch Arkansas, Mississippi?
Or Purdue, Wisconsin. Or
right.
Something.
Or something like that. Or Purdue, Northwestern, right? Which one of those are they going to watch? Well, they're probably going to watch whichever one is conference affiliated for them. Like I do. Right. I do that.
Yeah.
I watch more Pac-12 football than I watch anything else, even if maybe the quality is a little bit less than the other conferences. It's still, these are teams that my team is, up against in the standings. These are teams that my team is going to play. I'm more interested in the outcome of those sorts of games. So of course I'm going to probably watch that a little more closely. So I don't know that, simply having it on head to head with those games is going to attract, many more eyeballs, because I just don't know that there are a lot of college football people who watch who are unaffiliated. Like ultimately this all comes down to how good are the teams and how bad do people want to watch good football. And I don't know that starting at 9 a.m. fixes any. I don't think it fixes any of that. So
yeah, and I think you're talking about picking these games and what games they should be, and you're probably going to still have the primetime Eastern slot for your best game, for your top teams at 5 p.m. or 3 p.m. start or whatever, but the thing is, if you're having a 9 a.m., if you're forcing a school to plan for a 9 a.m. game and you're forcing TV trucks to plan for a 9 a.m. game, this can be like, it's going to have to be treated like a Thursday or Friday game, and it's going to have to be scheduled before the season. Like it's the same way, because there's every team has to have a certain number of Thursday or Friday games once every 5 years or whatever, and that's how the rules are now, and that's probably where Wilner got the idea, and so I think that you'd have to you couldn't do the 6-day window with a 9 a.m. That would just be a nightmare for schools to have that, and so you would have to have it scheduled, and so you could end up having was Wazoo and Oregon. Like, we looked at it as a potential good matchup at the start of the year, but it ended up being more than we thought it would be, especially because WSU ended up, they were only ranked 25 coming into that game, but they ended up ranking 10th, and that was a bigger game than it even looked at the time.
Right.
But say they, say because, I just think like WSU versus anyone in Pullman, they would be like, yeah, that's a second tier game, like automatically. And so WSU versus, Utah, that would have been a great choice, before the season, like two maybe fringe, potentially could be ranked teams, but, because even at the start, neither team was ranked, but they both turned out to be two of the top 3 teams in the conference. And one was a conference, or a division champ, and the other one was, one Apple Cup away like every year from being a division champ. And so that was a huge game in retrospect. But even if they would have put it at 9 a.m. early in the year, it would have been seen as a second tier game. But anyway, so yeah, it's you're gonna have to plan ahead with those things. So it's gonna be hard to pick like what's exactly gonna be a first tier and second tier game. And you're also going to have to come to that year when you have to have USC play a 9 a.m. game, and you have to have Stanford play a 9 a.m. game, and you have to have Oregon play a 9 a.m. game, and UW play a 9 a.m. game.
Right.
And so that's which USC game are you going to pick? You're going to pick the game when they play San Jose State or whatever. And so, because you're not going to deal with USC is already in this deal where we're getting the same amount of revenue as they are. So USC has already given up quite a lot to be in our little conference, and then you're going to be like, oh, by the way, USC, you have to play at 9 a.m. like the rest of us,
right?
Like, and so it's definitely going to be USC's going to be like, well, then it's going to be USC versus San Jose State. And my fear is like it would end up being like just to appease the schools, it's always these early season body bag games.
Right.
Like, okay, oh yeah, WC's playing Montana State. Well, we'll put that at 9 a.m. Whatever. Like it probably wasn't going to be good attendance anyway, so like just put that at 9 a.m. So when it comes to the schedule makers and maybe just because of pushback from the schools, it ends up being that way. Maybe they could put some caveats in the rules, and I think they would have to. Like, there has to be a conference game, and it has to be a certain time of year or whatever. I think it would always have to be the first half of the year. But George, can you imagine going to a 9 a.m. game in Pullman in November?
Oh, good Lord. I mean, yeah, the unique challenge of Pullman is just sort of like, I mean, whatever.
So
that is the only time of day in which it would probably be prohibitive for everyone. Like, you know what I mean? Like the 7 o'clock starts, like, okay, yeah, that's kind of rough for, Spokane people who gotta, drive that, crazy ass highway back up there after a game at, midnight or whatever. So, I mean, I get all that. But it's like, at least, the students are there to party, people who are staying the night in Pullman are there, whatever, and you can tailgate all day leading up to, I mean, it's great. Like at 9 a.m., like, I mean, what are you going to, I mean, nobody wants to do that. I mean, like if I lived in Pullman and I get up early, I don't think I would want to go to a 9 a.m. game. Like I have small children, so I get out of bed at, I'm out of bed by 5:30 or 6 on pretty much every day. Like it doesn't even matter anymore because I'm that kind of old.
Well, I've had a bunch of, because of our expansion to global markets, I have so many like 6 a.m. calls and 7 a.m. calls that I can't sleep past 7 a.m. anymore. Like it's impossible. Yeah. So yeah, I would be up, but it's a whole different thing, like in Pullman or whatever.
Yeah. So I even if I lived in Pullman, I wouldn't want to do that. I would, because I like waking up, having a coffee. I don't know. I just can't convince myself like, okay, 6 a.m. time to get ready for Cougar football. It's like
see some folks before the game, go to the Coug, go to the tailgate, whatever. Yeah. Like go to Valhalla, whatever. Have a beer. It takes out that experience, like because there's something special about the pregame tailgate that you can't get in the postgame tailgate.
Absolutely.
It's that anticipation or that pessimism or the optimism, whatever you're feeling. And it's the watching the other games happening, whatever you're talking about other stuff. Because after the game, you're talking about the Cougs and you're talking about what happened. And, lately, thankfully, most of the games have been wins in Pullman. And so it's happy most of the time. But Apple Cup excluded.
What? Which game? I don't know. I've never heard of that
Apple
game.
Cup and FCS game.
I'm not even sure what you're talking about.
But yeah, so it's let's talk about it. Let's say 9 a.m. start, WSU versus Arizona. It's October 10th, and the game's at 9 a.m. And we knew this, coming in. And so you're like, well, fuck it, I'm going to the game. Or you're like, oh man, these tickets are cheap. But so we're going to the game, 9 a.m. game. Yeah. I mean, I got season tickets. I'll probably be there. Well, so I'll start off. So I don't want to give away too much, but I book my lodging really, really, really far in advance. So I only plan to stay on Saturday when I go to Cougar football games. Uh-huh. And I do have family in Yakima, so if there's a noon or 11 a.m. start, I'll stay in Yakima the night before, and I'll get up early and drive, and then knowing that I get to stay in Pullman that night. So
right.
So I but the thing is, most of the games are late enough to where I can drive over on Saturday morning and still get some tailgating in, and then check into my hotel and go to the game. 9 a.m. is you definitely would have if you're coming from anywhere, like you could, if you're in Spokane, you can get up at and drive down for the game. Like you definitely could. You have an early morning. Like I've gotten up that early from Yakima or the west side to drive over, so you definitely know you can get up that early and go. And if it's the mid fall or early fall or still late summer game, then the road's probably not going to be that bad. Like it's not going to be too dangerous or whatever. If you want to come back after the game, then it'll be like 1:00 in the afternoon. So maybe that's not so bad, especially I don't know. So but I don't think like you're gonna have a lot less Spokanites wanting to get up at 6:00 in the morning to get ready and go down to Pullman, especially without any promise of any tailgating or seeing any Pullman sites, unless you want to stay after the game, which of course you can do. But there's always that temptation when you stay after the game, like I just want to go home. Like if you're not playing, stay. For me, I would almost certainly have to try to find a place to stay on Friday night, which if I knew well in advance, I could plan. I remember for college game day, when there was a chance they would come for Oregon, when you just knew like a few weeks earlier, I was able to, on top of my hotel I had already booked, I was able to book like a Friday night in the Motel 6 in Moscow. Which it wasn't obscenely priced. I mean, for a Motel 6 it was, but it wasn't obscenely priced. In terms of like, if I'm thinking, if I'm doing this, I'm going to college game day, so whatever, I'll pay whatever Motel 6 is asking. But yeah, so I'd have, you'd have to plan for an extra night, but I've already booked that Friday. I mean, you can cancel hotel reservations, of course. But I like staying Saturday night in Pullman. Like that's that's part of the allure of going to Pullman.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to get right out of town. I mean, you want to hang out,
Yeah, I've never driven, like I've only had season tickets since I lived on the west side, of course, but I've never driven back after a game. And I've had season tickets for this will be my 5th year this year. I've never driven back after a game. I was planning to drive back to Yakima after the Portland State game. And my dad came with me. We stayed the night before. They lost. That was an early game. That was 11 a.m. That was really early. And so they lost, and then some BA had a place for me to stay. Brian Anderson, our co-blogger, he had a place for me to stay, and my dad and I just stayed because, like, well, we don't want the only memory of this weekend to be a shitty loss to Portland State. So we had some fun. But anyways, what I'm thinking is, like, for that game, we got up at like we were down tailgating at 8 a.m. and that felt so early. Like we had like whiskey and the coffee, and
yeah.
it just, and anytime it's been like a 11 a.m. 12 a.m. start, like the tailgating, you're like, you always think like a minimum of 3 hours before, right? Is when the tailgates are set up, like for the early games, and obviously for the late games, it's just like 10 hours before or whatever.
Right.
But but and 9 a.m. is 8 a.m. for 11 a.m. games or whatever. But 9 a.m. is kind of like, that's usually when people can get around to like wanting to be at the tailgate.
Right.
Like that's like the earliest.
That's about the earliest.
But if you want to tailgate before a 9 a.m. game, like you're gonna have to have people hyped up like they're going to the college game day set.
Like they're going to game day, right? Because
yeah,
that's pretty much, except for with game day, we all just we're like, sweet, it's 9 o'clock, let's go take a nap. Like it was.
Yeah, but that's 9 o'clock. No, go watch the
Yeah,
football
now
game.
go into the football game.
I don't know. It's like, and I just know if you look at the extremes, like if the 7:30 and 8 p.m. starts are the other end of the extreme,
Right.
people bitch about this, especially people going to Pullman, like bitch about that a lot because there's like it's very difficult to drive home after an 7:30 game that gets over at 11. And so I don't know, like I'm wondering if, there's I think there's I think everyone, like when they hear about it at first, is just like there's no way. I think there's a subset of people who don't really tailgate, who just maybe just, I know if you have your kids with you, it's hard to tailgate,
Yep.
and stuff. So, but maybe it was like 9 a.m. So maybe you could like spin it as a family game, but also like still like for a very large chunk of your fans that attend games, like they're coming over from the west side, so you're gonna have to have that Friday night lodging, and for that turns into like 2 nights for most people, and so and even you're getting into Pullman, and then it's like well let's go to bed and let's get up early, and we've done I've done some very short sleep nights on Friday because I had a little too much fun on Friday, but I've come now to where I do most of my trips of just one night in Pullman because that's all my body can handle. But yeah, I don't know, man. Like the more I talk about it, the less I think it's insane. It's kind of funny as I'm just going.
Yeah.
But
I mean, if it was like once and
well, like once every 5 years,
right,
honestly.
and I could see I could see WSU trying to make a deal out of it. Like, hey, let's open up the field house and have a giant, breakfast buffet or something. You know what I mean? Like, or, hey, we'll have I don't know. Like, I'm trying to think of like something crazy, like we'll do breakfast, like some kind of breakfast theme, something or other. You know what I mean? Just
well, yeah, well, think about your standard concessions fare. Are you like
right?
Like what? I mean,
give everybody a
hot
free
dogs. Like you're getting a
burrito
hot
on
dog.
the
Like
something. I don't know.
are you getting the Cougar Gold mac and cheese at 9:30 in the morning? I mean,
Right.
probably sounds, depending on what you were drinking before, probably be great.
Right. Maybe everybody gets a free coffee on their way. I mean, I don't know, just something. You know what I mean? Like just do something to make it a thing, make it an event. In years past, I would think like there would be no chance of doing that competently, but they've actually started convincing me in the last year that they kind of know what they're doing now.
Yeah,
so,
I think
so. I think they might actually be able to pull something interesting together if they, somehow got stuck with that 9 a.m. They would try to figure out some way to make it an event. And that would be, I think, really the way to go. You'd have to somehow convince people that this is a really cool thing that, you want to try and be a part of, maybe with the try and convince the students, maybe, I don't know, let them into the stadium and let them sleep in the stands or something, the night before. I mean, I don't know, like bring your sleeping bag and you can sleep on the bench. I mean, whatever. I mean, as long as it's September, I mean, I think it could.
And people don't die.
Yeah. We don't want any,
exposure.
Hypothermia or anything. So I don't know. I mean, like one time, I don't know, maybe they could be creative and try to make it work. But, again, I'll go back to the original thing I said, which is I just don't think it adds that much value. Like no matter what the challenges are, I just fundamentally, I don't see it adding that much value. So.
Yeah. And I agree. But also we'd have to pour one out for those poor television crews that have a call time at like 2 a.m. So like they would,
they would get to go to bed.
Like
they would just stay up.
You think of those poor Root Sports crews that they have the getaway game at 12:30 on Wednesday, followed by the 10 inning, 11 inning game on Tuesday night, and they pretty much are getting home at like 1 in the morning, and then having a call time the next morning at like 6 a.m. or something. And this would be, those crews that get into Pullman, like, because they're usually getting in on Friday, and they got 2 a.m.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's insane. I mean, it's just, yeah, you would just stay up. You just stay up and then go do probably a bad job with the production, and then and then clean up and then go pass out somewhere.
So I think what we're saying is 9 a.m. games gets a big whatever.
Yeah, I mean, listen. I think Wilner's thing was, hey, let's get creative, and I don't hate that philosophy. Like, hey, let's try something different. Let's try something creative. Okay, but I just I don't see where it, unless you're going to put a premium game there. I just don't see where it really makes that much of an impact for the amount of effort it's going to take to make it happen.
Yeah, it would be the ultimately like in 20 years we're like, remember that time that we had the 9 a.m. football game? Like, because they only tried it once and they're like, this was stupid. It didn't do anything, didn't move the needle.
Right.
But yeah, so you were talking a bit about in the last year the athletic department maybe has on the competency scale move the needle towards competent a little more to where maybe they could do a 9 a.m. game and actually like make it interesting. So they have presented us with this tease this week. We'll just spend a few minutes on it because by the time you listen to this, you probably already know what happened. Yeah. But anyway, so we're recording this the night before, so it comes out 6/12. They're teasing some announcement. They've been, fielding guesses and saying no one has guessed even close. Today they teased that it was something about technology and WSU football being with you wherever you go, or WSU sports or whatever. So Jeff, one, do you think it's going to be anything that big? Two, what's your wild guess as to what it is?
Well, I'm not good at guessing. My kids will affirm for you that I'm not good at guessing stuff like anything that requires guessing. My kids will be like, guess blah 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 blah, and I'm like, I can't. And they're like, no, just guess. And I'm like, I can't. I can't. Now I know what I wish it was. I wish it was something like an Alexa skill where Mike Leach would give you just random advice. Like that's what I would hope for. Well, I could be like, hey Alexa, ask Mike Leach what I should have for dinner.
And then it's a 20-minute.
Right. And then Mike Leach gets on and goes, one time when I was a boy in Wyoming, my favorite thing to eat for dinner was, leftover roadkill raccoon. And, he'd tell a story about the time they ate roadkill, and it actually tasted pretty good. It was a little gamey, but, so that's what I would want, that
with the cuffs.
Yeah. So that's what I would want. I mean, I don't know, like what they said, didn't they say something like it was something that would allow WS Athletics to be with your family at all times or something like that?
Let me go find it.
Which seems a little, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Just so it must be technology related. I don't know, whatever. I'm prepared to be underwhelmed. That's kind of the biggest thing. I'm prepared to be like, okay, whatever. Okay. But I do give them points for trying. I mean, normally they wouldn't even try something like this. So I'm definitely.
So it said innovative technology that makes Cougar football a part of your family every day.
Yeah. So the other thing I was hoping for was maybe like their own version of Google Glass where College Game Day is just on loop, 24 hours a day, or Gardner Minshew touchdowns just 24 hours a day or whatever. But I don't know. Google Glass isn't really a thing anymore.
You go augmented reality where every room you step in, Gardner Minshew is doing stretches in his jockstrap.
Yeah, no, I'm not a college co-ed, so that's not going to really do much for me. But Gardner Minshew touchdowns.
Your entire family.
Yeah, my entire family, like dinner time, guys, and then augmented reality, like jockstrap Gardner Minshew is sitting there eating some pasta, whatever.
Yeah. Obviously, initially, like people were like, "Oh, it's an indoor practice facility. It's a big donor.
Yeah,
It's
which is what we were really hoping for, right?
Yeah,
some sort of like $10 million donor for the IPF. Like that would be great.
Right. And so, yeah, and but we all knew it wasn't going to be anything. Like as soon as they did it, you're like, it's going to be a little disappointing. So we know it's not that. They've told us it's not the IPF or anything like that. I do. I was hoping that it was something like that, but it's whatever. It's just going to be something silly, and like maybe it'll be something cool that, but I don't think I don't think it's going to be something big that impacts the programs in any way. The program.
No, I don't think so.
But yeah, but Cougar football, part of your family every day.
Yeah.
We're all going to have WSU recruits live, like we're all going to be given the benefit of being WSU recruit liaisons.
Yeah, homestay programs.
We teach them how to be Cougs somehow while being compliant with the NCAA at the same time.
Yeah, that shouldn't be any problem.
But anyways, yeah, whatever. Something's gonna happen tomorrow. If it's a really big deal, we'll have an emergency podcast for you.
Yeah. So that's our plan, because we'll let the listeners in on this. We had talked about like, hey, when should we record? Should we record after this? After this announcement, whatever. And then we remembered that we're going to see the Sounders play in the Open Cup at Cheney Stadium Wednesday night. So we were like, well, we can't do that. So if it's something really big and interesting, then we'll probably like whip out a phone and just kind of record a raw episode there from the Sounders, either before the game or during halftime or something, and just kind of throw down some thoughts, and we'll upload as a bonus episode. But we are both sort of fully prepared to be underwhelmed. So
yeah, underwhelmed. I mean, every teased marketing announcement ever in the history of the world is you'd be underwhelmed. Like it is, there is nothing that has ever delivered from a marketing perspective. Speaking as someone who works in marketing now, there's nothing that has ever delivered on the hype, like the anticipation. So there's nothing that at least we know they've actually done a good job at this point of tempering expectations. I do think there could be, this was an informal way to gather data on what WSU alums truly believe is important for the university or the football program or whatever. So maybe it was an informal thing to do that, which I would give them a tip of the cap for that. The thing about marketing is the challenge is always trying to figure out what the hell your consumers want, your customers want. Obviously it's a lot easier these days because they tell you everything that they want on their cell phone. Yeah,
you don't even have to ask. You just spy on them, and it's
there are laws in Europe around how to treat that data, but
we don't live in Europe, Craig.
Oh, let me tell you, even if you're a company that's not European, you still have to deal with it.
You do,
because a European might come over into
That's right.
It'd be a customer at one point. But anyway, so so whatever, big whatever on everything today. But yeah, so we won't go into that too much because it's going to be pretty irrelevant by the time you are listening to this. But anyways, Jeff, did I, as one who works from home, I was able to watch the Women's World Cup today. And I was able to catch the U.S. match where I saw a barrage of goals that could only ever be matched on a video game. The U.S. winning 13-0 over Thailand.
Poor Thailand.
Poor Thailand. So that was historic in itself. It's the biggest, the most goals ever scored in a Women's World Cup game, and probably, I don't know, any men's World Cup games not that much either.
Yeah, they did. I'm watching. I have SportsCenter on the TV screen right now as we talk, and they said most goals ever scored by the United States, and then it said like in parentheses, men's or women's World Cup. And I was like, are you serious? Like, do you really have to put that on there?
It's
like,
the most of men's has scored. Like,
I mean,
got to be the top.
Probably 3 or 4 or something like that. Like,
we went through the Bradley
on.
years where like one goal was the
I mean, come on.
A 1-0 win was the peak.
So anyway, they scored 13 goals, and they were very excited about their 13 goals.
Yeah. So yeah, one of the ones that they've showed a lot is Megan Rapinoe, or however you say her name.
Rapinoe.
Reign FC star. She has not, I don't think, played a single match for them this year. But not that I've seen, because they are my hometown team. Right. She scored the 9th goal and ran over and did this.
So absurd.
Just ran over and did this kind of hilarious sort of like kick, like move. I don't know. And so that has kind of been the central of the controversy, I think. It's just the celebration of it. Your 9th goal, it's 9-0. You're just beating the piss out of this team, and then you're celebrating like it's a huge goal. And so there's been a lot of I saw right away the Fox Sports host he was like Alexi Lawless was on there, and he thought, from the scoring of goals standpoint, for me it always comes back to, I feel like it's more disrespectful to an opponent to lay off than actually just keep playing normally.
Right.
Like I think it's like if you say to your opponent, who is apparently supposed to be your peer, which they obviously are not, like the U.S. and Thailand in terms of women's soccer, but they're supposed to be your peer. You're at this event where you're supposed to be with your peers. If you're just be like, oh, let's kick the ball around in the middle, it's very obvious. In soccer, it's like, I mean, in football, you run the ball. Like what it is you run the ball, and maybe if Paul Wolf was coaching the other team, you still are unable to, like, even in running the ball, you're still scoring touchdowns. But and you have to start taking knees at the 10-yard line, but whatever. But yeah, so if the U.S. would have just stopped trying to score goals, I feel like that's more disrespectful to Thailand than keeping the score. But of course, the actual issue that has come up was like the celebrating the goals as Rapinoe did and some of the others did. Like I know Carly Lloyd scored in the 92nd minute to make the 13th one. And she was excited about it. I'll say, like, first off, my thing is scoring in a World Cup is special, probably for any soccer player.
Heck yeah.
And there's no guarantee that you're going to score another one in the World Cup. Maybe. So if you had a celebration plan for when you scored your World Cup goal or whatever, if it's 9-0, 10-0, like, I don't know, like, just to tell someone they can't have that joy because they're being too good.
Yeah, you're too good. Don't celebrate.
Yeah,
don't
stop celebrating. You're too good. I don't know. Like they didn't, like. I mean, did they know that when they scored their World Cup goal, it was going to be like 8-0? Like, do you get it? You don't get to have joy in it because Alex Morgan has already scored 5 or whatever. Like I don't know, because Alex Morgan didn't. She scored her 5th goal and she smiled and she hugged her teammates or whatever, which is tied a record. Set by, as you reminded me, Shoreline Zone, Michelle Akers, in 1991. Yeah. 2-time World Cup winning Michelle Akers.
Yeah.
But yeah, so 5 goals. I mean, if I was Alex Morgan and I scored 5 goals in any match, or let alone a World Cup match, I would have lost my shit. Like,
yeah,
insane. Like, so I don't like. And here's the thing, like that. I mean, I've never, and I never will see anything like that again. And so me as a fan, like I know I've seen like some soccer fans are like, that wasn't really enjoyable because they felt bad for their team, like it just didn't feel competitive. but me as not someone who cares about that, who has to endure much pain watching the men's soccer team.
Yeah.
Just I was like, hell yeah, this is so awesome. Like it just goal after goal after goal. Like you just get so much like there's just like it's like you're like this is something they'll never see again. Like
Yeah, I mean, it's like imagine the WSU Arizona game, except WSU just kept scoring at that rate and finished with like 100 points, and Arizona had
right.
0.
Yeah, if the 55-point first half was duplicated again.
Also in the second half.
But actually the amazing thing is that they only had 3 goals at halftime. They scored 10 goals in the second half.
Yeah.
Like 10
Which
goals
is
in the
bananas.
half. It's just insane. Like that's a goal every 4.5 like I mean so there's 3 minutes, so a goal roughly every 4.5 minutes.
That's not unusual for soccer, in the sense that obviously the score is unusual, but I just mean in the sense that the more dominant team sort of opens it up in the second half after the other team is been chasing them around for 6
I don't I don't think it's unusual for any like football, any basketball.
Yeah.
We see that happen. The other team can expel all their energy to like stay in it, but eventually that energy is gone, and the adrenaline of the start of the match is gone, and
you can only chase for so long. In soccer, if you don't have the ball, you do a lot of chasing.
Oh yeah.
And you can only chase for so long before you really start to run out of gas, and it certainly looked like that's what happened with them. And
it wasn't difficult. A lot of the goals in the second half were not difficult goals.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I've seen
a matter of finishing.
Yeah.
Inside 10 yards, really.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them were inside 10 yards.
Yeah. I've seen the highlights. I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was dealing with a sick kid today, but the other thing they're limited by is the way, substitutions work in soccer. So, if someone listening to this isn't really a soccer fan, they may not realize that you only get 3 substitutions for the entire game in soccer, unless it goes to extra time, then they give you another one. But, in a 90-minute game, you get 3 substitutions. That's part of the strategy, of soccer. So, so they get 3 subs. Well, I mean, they are, obviously the United States was so much more talented. I mean, even if you take off 3 players, number one, the 3 players you're bringing on are probably still better than anybody Thailand has, and then what do you like, I always kind of put it this way, like, okay, so what's more embarrassing, getting, a bunch more goals dropped on you, or the United States playing keep away for 30 minutes? Like, just like, haha, look, you can't get the ball. And they're just like passing around the back, passing it up to the midfield, and then passing it to the side, and then back passing again, and watching Thailand run around because they can't get the ball. Like, is that somehow less embarrassing? Like, are they supposed to then, okay, so that's embarrassing. So then are they supposed to like kind of half try, but not really try, so that it looks like Thailand is doing better than, I mean, it's just like, it's stupid.
Well,
it's stupid.
Can we just there's 2 clear best teams in their group, and Sweden's the other one. And Sweden's playing Thailand too. And say US and Sweden play to a draw.
Yep.
And they both beat the other 2 teams, so they both end up with the same amount of
Chile's
points.
the other team.
Yeah.
So if they both beat Chile,
they and then they draw each other. Sweden, by the way, beat Chile 2-0 today.
Right.
So say the US also beats Chile 3-1, 2-0, whatever, or maybe they only beat them 2-1 or whatever, or 1-0. And they tie. So what the difference in winning the group and getting second, 2 teams from the group advance, if you're not familiar with the World Cup, whatever. I don't know why you're still listening to this, but maybe you just want to learn something. But if you're not familiar with the World Cup, 2 of the 4 teams from each group advance, creating the round of 16. So if you're the winning group, you play from another group, the second team, and if you second in the group, you play the first team from another group. So you could play If you're the second team, you can end up playing a powerhouse and be knocked out in the round of 16. I mean, you never know. Like it does. Like it's really hard to sometimes the second team is actually the better team, like just because of how these things shake out, because it's 3 games, like a lot of shit can happen. But anyway, so the goal differential is a tiebreaker in that situation, and so it's the first tiebreaker if you have the same results, which they could have the same results if they both beat Chile and Thailand and then they tie or they draw. So at what point do you say we have enough goals? Do we have enough goals?
Right.
So these goals don't matter anymore.
In the first game of the tournament.
In the first,
it's not like the third game where you already know, right? It's like, okay, we only need this many goals to make sure we, have the goal differential. Like you don't, it's the first game, you don't know. And because the difference between the top teams and the bottom teams, or even like from the first tier to the second tier, is bigger than what you would find in a men's World Cup. The difference of being a 1 seed to a 2 seed, is actually a pretty big difference, or could be a pretty big difference. Like you could end up playing a significantly, better team if you end up in that second slot versus the first slot. So yeah, I mean, you're right on. You got to try and score as many goals as you can. Sweden's going to play them. Who says Sweden doesn't go out and score 10 goals against them? And then
what if Sweden sees that the U.S. has scored, because Sweden's playing them next?
Right.
What if Sweden sees the U.S. has scored 8 goals? And they're like, well, we got to go get 9 goals.
We got to go get 9 goals.
And they honestly, watching Thailand today, they probably could do that. Like honestly, if they were really that motivated, these goals were not difficult. And the U.S. could have come away with 20 goals. There was a couple penalties that could have been called in the first half that the ref did just let happen. There was obvious penalty. If this was a closely contested match, the ref definitely would have called those penalties. But the ref knew from the start it was not going to be, and I'm pretty sure that she had that in mind and was like, if it's an iffy penalty, I'm not calling it. And they even went to VAR, and one of them I was watching, and the girl was clearly pulled down from behind, or the woman was clearly pulled down from behind, and they didn't I think maybe in another situation you might have seen that reverse that and make it a penalty. But this is honestly, this could have been worse, and it could have been, they could have pulled off completely. And what do you do in that situation? You still have to move the ball around,
right?
And you definitely don't want to give up a goal. You don't want to start having the differential go the other way. And if you're just passing around in the middle of the field, you definitely can run the risk of that. So you want to keep it in your half of the field. And honestly, you just make a couple passes that they were not making crazy plays to get into the box.
Yeah. It seemed like the thing that most people had the problem with was the celebrations.
Yeah, but that's the time, which I'm still just for me, it's the fact that
you scored a goal in the World Cup, and I don't care. I don't care that your delicate sensibilities are offended by the fact that someone's happy. That's stupid, And it's a bunch of, I mean, let's be frank, a bunch of old white dudes, sitting around going, have a little class. It's you've never been at that level. You've never put in, and let's also be real. This is. For these athletes,
well, I'd say there's I don't know. You can say Taylor Twellman is one of those old white dudes who's mad about it, and I guess I don't know. He's been at.
That's sort of his brand, though, is to be.
Yeah, I mean, he's a grumpy guy, and I kind of embrace it with him sometimes, and it's kind of funny.
He's a grumpy New Englander, and that's what he does.
But he's been if you search Taylor Twellman right now, that's what. Every article that comes up is him. He's not a problem with the score line. He's mad about the celebrating. Whatever. I don't know. I've already made my point. You've already made your point.
Yeah.
It's whatever. I'm really stoked to go watch the Sounders play at US against the Timbers. Fucking walking distance from my house tomorrow. Whatever.
Yeah.
Go soccer. Go American
soccer.
Also, if you like like if you like a sense of pride in your country, like watch the goddamn Women's World Cup. We have the best team in the world, and they fucking wreck people.
Yeah.
And they're like it's like kind of like Tiger versus the field in terms of when Tiger was going, in terms of like who's winning the World Cup, only because there's so many in the rest of the field is why they wouldn't win it. Because there's been how many there's been? There's since 91 and 8, and the U.S. has won 3 of them. So like that's like this is the 9th one, and there's a chance that the U.S. could win 4 out of 9. Like that's how dominant the U.S. is in this, like this event that happens once every 4 years where your players turn over and like get old and you know, like it's crazy. And so if you want to be real patriotic and wave that flag, watch these matches. It's fun. It's fun to watch them just pummel people.
Yeah. I mean, you know, if you like excellence, and I like excellence, you know, I'm that same way. You know, I mean, I like to watch LeBron James. I like to watch Steph Curry. I like the Warriors. You know, it's like part of that's Klay Thompson.
And Klay.
Yeah, I mean, part of that's Klay, but part of that's also just, you know, the idea of watching, you know, uniquely talented athletes do unique things. Like I love Steph Curry because he does weird stuff for a guy who's not very tall and, you know, not very big, and he, you know, bends the game to his will. I think that's so much fun. I mean, so
just to take that's like this finals is fun to watch because Kawhi Leonard is another guy like that. He's
doing the exact same thing.
Like he's a 6'7" dude who like just doesn't look like a guy that should dominate, and he's just incredibly strong and a great defender who became a great offensive player and is just knows how to play and knows how to use his body and his skills and knows exactly, and has become an elite top 5 basketball player. And this has been fun, like in that regard. I mean, it would have been more fun if Kevin Durant didn't get hurt, but then I think we could have seen. I think maybe it's still like 2-3. Maybe just flip the other way. Right now, I think it's still a very good series if Durant's playing. I don't, because you know the Warriors, the games they've won have been very close, and the Raptors have kind of blown them out a couple times. But I don't know. Like we kind of went off a tangent there, but yeah. But anyways, go Klay. Yeah, he saved his team's ass again last night. But
yes, he did. As he is wont to do.
As he is wont to do. Hopefully, for his sake, we will be able to talk about him doing that again next week. They have what is it? Sunday?
Their next game?
No, they're not Sunday. That's
Thursday.
Thursday, and then
so game on
Sunday.
Thursday, and then it would be Sunday. Yeah, for Game 7.
Yeah. So we'll know by next podcast what happened.
That's right. Hopefully, we'll be celebrating another championship for Klay.
Honestly, I love Kawhi Leonard, and
yeah, he's pretty great.
I mean, I wouldn't. It's one of those where I'd be like, yeah, that's pretty badass. Because I remember Kawhi when in school, I was actually, I think when he was in, that was when I was contemplating going to San Diego State for grad school. So I thought he was bad. He was one of those things where like Ken Pom nerds and analytics nerds knew he was like awesome. And like we're like, why the hell is this guy at San Diego State?
Right.
And then you know he gets to the NBA and proves that, you know, like almost immediately with the Spurs.
Now we know why, because he was super weird.
Yeah, he's so weird.
He was super weird, and like all the big programs were just like, it's not really worth the effort to recruit a super weird dude.
Yeah, apparently it should have been though.
Worked out well for San Diego State.
Yeah, reached heights that they probably may never see again. But yeah, so where are we at now?
I don't know. You want to talk about kids? You got any funny kid stories?
Do I? Man, I don't know. I don't think I took B to any sporting events this week. Maybe it was a sporting event free week. I don't know. She did do so. You didn't stick around for it, Jeff, but they did have the diaper dash at the Sound to Narrows, And so we signed her up in the 2 and under division, or the 1 to 2 division. The 0 to 1's hilarious. It's all just like, like it was like 5 kids in it, and they're all crawl. Like that was like if you're, a pretty good crawler by the time you're 1,
Right.
So B, at the starting line, I'm at one end, Amanda's at the other. I'm kind of like behind some people, like, it was too crowded. It was just like there was too many participants for the width of the course. It's not a lot. It's like maybe 15 yards, 10 yards, maybe maybe 10 yards. Like it's not a long way for them to run, but just from one parent or, grandparent or whatever to another. And B starts off, gets going, and then notices everyone is cheering and clapping. And B, one who goes to sporting events a lot, loves the cheering and clapping. And like, she loves that part. She loves when everyone's cheering and she like starts clapping. And like, even like if the other team scores and she hears the other team's fans or players clapping, she like clapping out to be like, stop, B, what are you doing? You're embarrassing me. But yeah, but so she just, and I have a video, like she just stops in the middle of the race or race, whatever you want to call it, the dash.
And it's a race. It's a race.
She's clapping and she's like waving to all the people because she's just surrounded by people cheering, and she's just smiling and having a blast. And she actually got like I looked through the official race photos today. Jeff, I couldn't find you. Sorry.
No.
I did find me in the background on some things. But there's a couple full on just like B is the center of attention pictures because she's just like got her big smile and just like, standing in the middle of the field, just and soaking it all up. Amanda had to come in and grab her by the hand and lead her the rest of the way because I think she probably, if they were taking official scorekeeping, she got last place because she was just enjoying the atmosphere more than anything. So my daughter is more of a fan than an athlete, which is what I learned that day. She was just very excited about the spectacle of it all and less interested in competing. So that was pretty fun, and we have some good pictures that the official photographer took. So that was nice.
Yeah, well, that's good. She's, as we've gone over before, she's incredibly photogenic. So she when the camera's on, she's like, oh, a camera, smile. She's like, she's got it, which is, I am telling you, dude, is number one, is not normal. Number two, you will appreciate so much when it's like, I mean, you've probably already done this, but I mean, just like, when it's like family photo time or portrait time, and it's like, you're trying, you're doing a little dance, making fart noises to try and get the kid to smile or something. And it's like, man, B, all you gotta do is get a camera near her. And she's like, oh, camera, like, let me put on my nice smile right now at the perfect time for you, which is sort of, actually, if I could be 100% honest, kind of pisses me off because none of my kids were like that. So screw you. Screw you, Craig.
No one's as cool as B. So.
It's true. It's true.
What about you, man? I know you've had some sick kids this week.
Yeah, we've had some sickness. Atticus gets this like.
Thank you for not bringing that to my house, by the way.
Yeah. So let's see. Sarah was sick. She had to get fluids on whatever it was, Thursday or whatever, and then so like we ended up in Tacoma. So for the listeners, we ended up in Tacoma, and I had to kill some time with the kids. So I took them to dinner and didn't know, how much longer Sarah was going to take. So I'm chatting with Craig. Craig's like, oh, we should just, come over and hang out. Would that be helpful? And I was like, yes, that would be very helpful. And then my youngest I had forgotten, was sort of coughing all day. And then he, as soon as I was like, yeah, that'd be great, he like lets out this like ridiculously loud, like wet, nasty cough. And I'm like, oh, I should not go to Craig's house. Like I was like tempted. I was like, oh, but I do know that the closest I've ever come to murdering somebody is when they brought a sick kid over to my house. So I didn't want you to have to feel like you needed to kill me. So I figured it'd be better if I just stayed away. Sarah didn't end up, sticking around that much longer. So it worked out all right. But yeah, he continued to be sick through the weekend, and He's actually missed 3 consecutive days of school, which totally blows. And
yeah, that's pretty bad.
Yeah, we're doing better now. Well, like I thought. So he was threw up Thursday night overnight. So I stayed home with him on Friday, and then Saturday went better, and Sunday went better, and then Sunday night he threw up overnight, and then so Sarah stayed home yesterday, and then things seemed to be kind of okay, and then last night he threw up some more, and it was like, so then I stayed home again, and so we took him to the doctor today, and doctor gave us some anti-nausea medication to try and hold it back. He gets this thing where when he gets sick, he'll actually throw up a lot just because his body does that. Where, most of us, we might sort of be intensely nauseous, maybe like for a day or something. He can actually last for like days and days. So that, as you can imagine, that creates a lot of fun. I'm doing a lot of loads of laundry with blankets and sheets and
right.
Whatever. So anyway, yeah. So that was sort of the extent of my weekend. And but whatever. We're good. Nobody's dying. We're good. Just a little speed bump on our way to summer vacation. So
we'll go drink some beer at the Sounders match tomorrow. It'll be great.
Yeah.
This is a soccer podcast now.
Well, it is summertime, and that's sort of about it. So it's about all that's going on.
I guarantee you this will not be the last time we talk about the Women's World Cup.
Yeah, no, I doubt it. We'll probably
we got the gold. We got the Gold Cup.
That's right.
As well,
talk about the national team.
Copa America. There's all sorts of stuff going on in the summer for soccer. You think there's no sports to watch in the summer?
That's right. If you're a soccer hater, we'll try and keep it to a minimum.
We did so well today.
We'll try to spare you. Well, we waited until late in the podcast. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, we're very good at making our podcast late in the podcast. But yeah, so I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Subscribe. My Freem Pilsner is out now. I have no beer to drink.
Good man.
But yeah, so subscribe. If you're listening to this and you haven't subscribed, just go ahead and hit subscribe on whatever you're listening to. Podbean, which I don't think many of you actually come into the Podbean app to listen to it, but iTunes, Overcast, Stitcher, whatever. Spotify even does it. Oh, I think we just got on iHeartRadio. Which I didn't even know did podcasts.
Yes.
But we are in iHeartRadio, so subscribe to us on there as well. And
give us a 5-star rating, because we have a perfect 5-star rating right now.
We have a perfect 5-star rating, and you should bolster that for when the grumpy grump comes in.
That's right, because somebody's going to be grumpy. Somebody's going to be like, I did not sign up for this podcast to listen to you talk about women's soccer. And then we'll be like, did you not know that we're a bunch of West Coast liberals? Of course we're going to talk about women's soccer. So
yeah, it's required. It's in the fucking
That's right. It's in the handbook.
Yeah,
handbook.
You have to. We have to be soccer.
Talk about underrepresented populations playing sports that aren't that popular. That's it.
Well, soccer is insanely popular.
Not in this country, goddammit.
Not in the U.S.
This is the U.S.
Sorry, no. That line was from the pamphlet. I had to use it. I was required. I would have showed up at my door if I didn't use that. That line.
They would have revoked your snowflake card.
I know, and the benefits are numerous. And
what would you do without that 15% off that you get at the I don't know, what's a really liberal store, like Whole Foods? The 15% off you get at Whole Foods. There you go.
Still too expensive.
You're like, that's still 30% more than when I go to Fred Meyer.
Oh, you screw it. No one's listening at this point anyway. So you are you are the biggest Safeway hater I know.
I am. And not because I hate Safeway, just because it's expensive as hell.
Yeah. So we've shopped with Safeway in the past, but we've been shopping at Fred Meyer mostly lately. But we just had to stop on the way back we went on a hike, and we went back to Point Defiance Park for a hike today. And on the way back, we just had to get a couple essentials at Safeway, and we literally just couldn't buy things because they were too. I was like, this is ridiculous, like it's ridiculously priced, like stuff. And I'm just like, I haven't shopped in Safeway in a while, and I like kind of forgot like that just like it is higher, like it higher price,
so much higher.
But I will say, like, one thing I always associate with Safeway is insanely long checkout lines. I think they tell their checkers to like engage more with people, and you're just like sitting there like this next person in line, and you've been waiting for 10 minutes already. Like, stop talking to them.
Well,
nobody
then they try
cares.
and talk to you.
Yeah, and then you're like,
I don't want to talk to you.
I
just want to check out and go home.
Just can you finish checking out my stuff so I can leave? It took me 20 minutes to pick out my food, and it's taking me 20 minutes to get rid, to pay for my food. Like, but I will say we got through the checkout line very quickly. We just had to decide not to buy a few things because we couldn't do a full-on good, like a proper grocery shop. Also, there's bees to the point where there's a limited amount of time you can have her in the cart, especially if you're getting food that she likes.
Yeah.
String cheese, milk, bananas, we're going to the grocery store because we need to buy the things that Bee eats. Like, otherwise we're going to have a horrible day the next day. We need 100%. The string cheese and the milk and the banana.
Yeah,
she wakes up every day and goes, Nana, Nana, Nana. So like, we have to have a banana for her. Otherwise, like, we'll hear about it the rest of the day.
Yes, you will.
She has a very limited vocabulary. One of those words is banana or nana. And if she will ask for it the rest of the day, even if you give her one, she will. So I don't know how much would be different. But also, you deal with a grouchy kid if they're not getting enough to eat.
Right.
So that's a problem. But also, I like milk in my cereal in the morning. I like just having a bowl of cereal because I'm lazy. I don't want to eat anything else. So I like to have the milk. And so we're taken care of, at least from that point. And that wasn't overly priced, but there was a couple of things we wanted to buy for like dinners for the rest of the week, and we're like, nah, we're fine. Like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
we'll figure out a dinner based on something else. But anyways, that is not interesting and not good. Maybe if we were in the grocery store podcast industry, that would be more interesting, but it's not.
Hey, come to us for all your hot tax takes, your hot grocery store takes, and by the way,
come to us on your fat man running
your fat man running long distances takes.
Yeah. No, I'll say, like, I was pacing with next to this. So this girl that was running the pace that I wanted to run, and so I was like, she obviously, like, she seems like she knows what she's doing, because she looked very fit, but she was about 5'4" probably, which is more than a foot less than me, and so I just kind of ran up to the cider for a while, and then after a bit I was just like, hey, I'm pacing with you, just so you know, like, you're going the pace I want to go, I like it. And she goes, you have such long legs, so that makes me feel good. And I reached out and I grabbed my belly and shook it. I go, I got this too. Like, so that evens it out. Like, yeah. But so fat man run too. You gotta lose that weight somehow. But
that's how you do it.
Yeah, man, pretty good. Like and subscribe, especially if you are still listening at this point.
If you are still listening, you are hardcore, and you should be subscribing. So.
Also, send us email, podcast versus everyone, questions, whatever. Someday we'll be cool enough to have enough questions to do a mailbag, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's not the case at this point.
We haven't run out of things to talk about yet. You'll know that we've really landed on hard times when we're like, mailbag, send us mailbag questions.
Yeah.
We're probably only a couple of weeks away from that, though.
Yeah. We got the doldrums coming up.
We have to be careful, though. We don't want to infringe on Ask Michael Anything territory. We want to make sure that Michael has his space for his.
Save your questions for the Coug Center Hour.
That's right.
unless, but you can ask us something, but not anything. You can't ask us anything. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can ask Michael anything, but you can ask us some things.
Some things, not anything though. We have limits. We unlike Michael, we have standards.
All right. This has gone on long enough.
We're done.
All right, we're done. All right. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.
Go Cougs.